A lawyer representing several phone hacking victims has told the Media Ethics Inquiry the practice is much more widespread than just News of the World. Mark Lewis says he almost felt sorry for the tabloid.
Europe correspondent Emma Alberici spoke with Mark Lewis and started by asking him about a CD that laid out how to hack phones.
Now, this CD that you discussed in court today, it had on it instructions by Glenn Mulcair, the private investigator who went to jail from News International, instructions from him to a journalist about how to hack phones. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was a straightforward, simple, step-by-step guide on how to hack a mobile phone. The Metropolitan Police gave it to us, so they thought it was relevant, and it was one of the matters that led to a settlement, because it showed that there was somebody else who was involved in hacking phones, and it also showed the modus operandi that Glenn Mulcair wasn't necessarily doing all the hacking. He was providing instructions, he was providing PIN numbers, he was providing phone numbers for journalists to do their own hacking.
You mentioned in court that you'd been expelled from your law firm in Manchester. Was that as a direct result of you having pursued these phone hacking claims?
Well, we're actually standing in the same spot almost. That I got this ultimatum from my old firm that said, you know, if you are going to take on other phone hacking cases, and if you're going to appear on a television programme called Newsnight, then unless you give us an undertaking that you won't do those things, you're expelled. They gave me an hour to think about it, that I would be expelled as a good leaver. I was a partner in the firm, so I didn't have employment rights. It was just, and the partnership agreement gave my partners a right to expel me without any reason, just because they wanted to. They didn't want me to pursue any phone hacking cases.
We also heard in court that Rebecca Brooks, the former editor of the News of the World, had threatened revenge against you.
Certainly that's what I was told at the time. Watch my back, Rebecca Brooks, you're calling for her to resign. She's going to get somebody to get you back. It's not going to be in one of the group's newspapers. It'd be too obvious if it was, that News International started speaking about you. And at that time I managed to get into an article within another newspaper run by Associated, a journalist called Amanda Platel.
And she called you sanctimonious?
She said I had a sanctimonious face, or she was fed up with seeing my sanctimonious face on the BBC. So I don't know whether my face was sanctimonious on other channels or she just watched the BBC.
Lord Justice Leveson asked you if there should be some kind of alternative to the court system that would allow people with grievances against the press to find a less costly redress. Do you think that there is a need for some sort of tribunal, something other than the courts, that would make it speedy and less expensive?
You've got to remember that if you make the system cheap, it allows the press to trash people's lives, because they're doing a calculation and think, well, a cheap tribunal is going to cost us £30,000 and the damages are going to be another £30,000, so we might have to pay £60,000 in legal damages and costs at the end of this case, but wow, what a good story. It's worth every single penny.
What about putting an apology on the front page rather than on page 72 in typeface that's so small barely anyone will read it?
Well, I think it's not just the location of the apologies, but the timing. Often, by the time an apology is published, it can be 6 months after, 9 months after the story, and for the victim, it's even worse than that, because what it does is resurface and recreate the original story. Because if you don't say why you're apologising, people are left to speculate what you might be apologising or what the newspaper might be apologising for. And if you do say it, it's a second running of the story for those people who missed it the first time. This is what we'd like to say about somebody. And too many people will look at things and say, well, there's no smoke without fire.
So what on earth is the solution when you hear someone like Cheryl Gascoigne talking in passionate means today about being harassed and pursued, about being money hungry and marrying a footballer just for his money, only for everyone to later find out that he was beating her and her kids. I mean, by then it's too late.
Well, the solutions are wider than that. Injunctions are the proper remedy to stop things happening. Proper standards by the press would be, a good start to say, look, stop invading people's private space. It's not, any story about Cheryl Gascoigne was not of the public interest. She's a wife of someone who happens to earn his living with his feet. If he was a painter and decorator, the painter and decorator's wife and children would not be the subject of vicious intimidation by newspapers who are hungry to sell salacious details about that person's life. I mean, common decency, you wouldn't break into somebody's house and look through their bedroom to find what was going on, or stick a camera through their curtains. But it does seem that the press feel that they have got this inalienable right to just trample over people's privacy because they've decided that they are a public person.